Hello, and welcome back to the Hoof Football Podcast. It's World Cup time. It's the World Cup special. And today, myself, Ben, I'm joined by Charlie and Lewis, my good friends, because we are going to predict exactly what's going to happen in the World Cup. But before we do that, okay, I just want to have a little chat, find out how you are. So, Charlie, how's life, man? How have you been?
Yeah, it's all right. I can't really say I've been up to too much apart from preparing for all the really late kickoff times for World Cup because obviously with it being in the US, there's going to be staying up sometimes maybe till maybe 2 in the morning, depending on which games are interesting, of course. If it's like I don't know, like Austria versus Jordan or Curacao versus someone, I'm really not going to be interested in staying up till like 4 in the morning trying to watch it. But yeah, I've not really been up to much. Still, just I don't want to rub it in too much, but just still feel great that whole City Premier League next season. Looking forward to it. Apart from that, no else.
Well, it is the World Cup episode, Charlie, so shut your mouth.
Yeah,
Yeah, for one, quite excited to watch Curacao play. Maybe just because they've got Sancho Hansen of Middlesbrough Football Club. I was chatting with Lewis earlier, actually. I found out that the first two England games I can watch, which I was worried because obviously my job, I work late sometimes. And the first one's obviously at 9 o'clock, and I finish work at 8. And the next one's at 9 o'clock, and I'm on annual leave that day. So the first two against Croatia and Ghana, I'm locked in, I'm ready. Um, Lewis, how are you, mate? How's life?
Yeah, I'm not too bad. Obviously, not much football at the moment. I was interested by the whole Florentino Perez thing because of the absolute rubbish that he's been spouting, as well as his electoral candidate who was against him. So that's been a little bit interesting, that saga. But obviously, yesterday he got the confirmation that he's going to be the Real Madrid president again. I just feel at this point we already knew it was going to be him all along. So yeah, Mourinho's back. Other than that, nothing too special really. Obviously, looking forward to Mexico, South Africa because I'm off. I finish early on Wednesdays. Sorry, Thursday, so I get to watch that. And then yeah, let the World Cup begin.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. I for one, I'm bloody excited. But as you say, let the World Cup begin. Before it begins, we've got to predict it because everyone's been wondering. Everyone's been hanging on the edge of their seat, wondering what the Hoofit lads are going to think the World Cup's going to be like. So we've got a couple of categories to go through today. We've got some pretty standard ones: the winner, Golden Boot, Dark Horse, all pretty normal ones, Breakout Star, and then just a little rogue prediction at the end. Couldn't just be anything that you think might happen in this World Cup. Could be Donald Trump to score a 93rd minute winner. You know, anything you're thinking, chuck that in there. That's the rogue prediction time. But we will start with the most generic prediction. We'll get started. We'll start with the winner. Charlie, who do you think is winning the 2026 US World Cup?
um, I'd like to think it's coming home and it's going to be England. Um, but I just have some sort of feeling that after watching our most recent friendly, and I know it wasn't really going to be anything taken too seriously, some players who performed in that game, very hard to watch, especially Anthony Gordon, who, when you look at him and the fact that he was sold for 90 million to Barca, it just seems ridiculous from his performance against New Zealand. But as much as I want to say England, I've decided to go for a different country, so I'm not going to be too biased. And I've actually gone for Portugal. And my reasoning behind that is when I look at the players in that squad, there is a good mix of players who I think are currently in their prime, and there's players who have some really good experience through previous tournaments, whether that be in the Euros or different World Cups. I think their attack looks pretty promising. I don't want to just kind of label it all on Cristiano Ronaldo. You've got Pedro Neto, who's been doing good. Rafael Leao, who, of course, I don't know if you saw in the friendly against Chile, had that bit of an incident there where he got sent off
Yeah,
along with another Chilean player. Um, just a few examples of their attack. The midfield is absolutely incredible when you've got the likes of Bernardo Silva, Bruno Fernandes, Vitinha. There's other players on there that I could make an example for. Even the defense, when you've got the likes of sorry, not Bruno, Ruben Diaz, Nuno Mendes, um, just so many different players with different experiences. Some players, as I said before, they're really in their currently best um, abilities at the moment, and I just think they're going to be able to compete against any top side, any top nation in this tournament, and I think they should easily get out of their group. It may depend on who they face early into the knockout stages, but I can't see it being a top nation. I think they'll go far, and I think they'll go on to win it. I don't think it's going to be written as to a story like the last World Cup where we all thought, oh well, it's all kind of labelled on Messi and Argentina to win it, which will really settle the GOAT debate. I think there's going to be some way of Ronaldo crawling back to being in that conversation once more to make it even more tight for who is really decided as the football GOAT. And I'm going to say Portugal win it.
Interesting, interesting. I think you had me in the first half there because you're wearing your England kit. You know, you said England. I was like,
Yeah.
yeah, it feels right. And then chucked a Portugal in there, which I don't hate, to be honest. I know, Lewis, I know you're not a fan of the Portugal shout for winning it.
Yeah, I think what you said there, Charlie, about England in that New Zealand game, you've got to also remember that it's a friendly, and also they had two complete different 11s in the first and second half. The thing that I need to kind of, I think people need to understand with England is that in the past we've always gone into it with a lot of optimism, but generally England fans are very scathing and very critical when the team doesn't play well on the pitch. For me, under Thomas Tuchel, the thing that I feel will be the thing to get us over the line, and I've said quite a lot, is the fact that we won't play well, but we will win. And for me, that is imperative in this tournament. I, I know it's not going to be kind of aesthetic, attractive football necessarily all of the time, but I think that this is the difference under Thomas Tuchel from maybe a Gareth Southgate, is that he's a serial winner in the sense that he can just bring a defensive display. We conceded no goals in the qualifiers. Like for me, it's England that are going to win it. Going back to the Portugal comment, I just feel like this is a great midfield for Portugal. And I think they've got a good team. But for me, there's just something missing. They've never really performed consistently at a World Cup. I think they've got knocked out in the past couple of years, maybe quarterfinals as far as they've got. Um, I just, for me, think it's England. I just the fact maybe there's a bit of bias there with the fact that it's Thomas Tuchel and he's obviously an ex-Chelsea manager. I know that he's took a team that was down and out, struggling under Frank Lampard, and completely kind of changed the script, won the Champions League with them. I think that he has made some hard decisions, but that's why I think he's the man for the right job. And I'm backing him all the way because I think he knows that this isn't the best kind of team with the best players, but maybe he can hopefully create a team that's more galvanized and unified with the best players for the job. I think that he's gone into this with the appointing players that are more versatile, that maybe have the right mindset compared to the best players. And for me, I just feel like I just have this feeling there's a hunch, and I know it's something that all England fans always say that it's coming home, but for me this time it's more of a serious yes, it's coming home with obviously some other big nations in the mix as well, which maybe you're going to bring them in now. Then
Yeah, yeah, you'd be correct. I am. I do want to quickly touch on things you both said at this point. I think the Portugal attack, I don't fancy it. Like I don't hate Portugal as a shout. I just think their attack is quite weak. Like Ronaldo, I don't think has ever scored a World Cup knockout goal, and he's backed up by like João Felix, who flatters to deceive, Rafael, who flatters to deceive, Gonzalo Ramos, who doesn't play that much for PSG,
got a
Francisco.
hat trick though against Switzerland.
He did score a hat trick against Switzerland.
Mm.
Sure. Francisco Conceição, who I don't really know, and then Pedro Neto, who again I don't think is that good. So I don't know. I don't know for them. Plus, I don't really rate Roberto Martinez as a manager. But with that being said, I do see Portugal having a decent run in the tournament. With England, I just can't back it. I just don't see it. I don't see it. But I'd love to be proven wrong. Charlie, similar to you, I've worn an England kit to the podcast and haven't predicted England to win the World Cup. I just wanted to wear my number 10 Raz 2020 Euro kit, to be honest. But I've gone probably the most boring shout of the lot. I've gone with France. It's they're just quite good, to be honest, guys. They're quite good. It's probably Deschamps' last tournament as well, which I think would probably galvanise the group a little bit. Try and win one more for the guy. Win one more for him. They've obviously got Mbappe, Elise, Dembele, Doué, Barcola. All of that lot. Like in defence, they've got Kanate, Saliba, they've got Kunde, they've got Mike Maignan in goal. Like the whole thing is like you look across it, it's just littered with stars. And when I've looked, I did like a World Cup bracket. When I've looked at their route, they've got a relatively kind run. based off what I think is going to happen. That's if they top the group, which I do still think they will. Obviously,
But
Norway
they have
semi.
Spain.
Yeah, they had Spain, but not till the semi-finals for me. Um, so they get all the way through till there before they play a proper contender. I just
Germany.
no, not on that side of the draw, mate. Not for me. Not when I did
Oh, I
my
thought they
bracket.
were.
Not when
Oh,
I did
okay.
my bracket, mate. So yeah, I see a France win, which would be three back-to-back World Cup finals for Deschamps, which is quite the feat. Okay, well that's who we think are going to win it. We've got Portugal, we've got France, and we've got England as our winners, and we'll move on to the Golden Boot race. Lewis, I'm going to start with you. I think. Who do you think's winning the Golden Boot?
Yeah, I wanted to obviously pick someone that maybe was a little bit more unorthodox and not maybe one of the bigger names, but there was no one that really stood out to me. I know that maybe the others might have one of them names that maybe I've not picked. For me, I've gone with Harry Kane. He's got 66 goals in all competitions this season for Bayern Munich, and it's one of the main reasons that I feel like he can be the spearhead of this England kind of reaching the final because we've got the best striker in the world. Or one of the best strikers in the world, who's in the kind of race for the Ballon d'Or. For me, when you've got a Harry Kane who's in full force, full form, you know, he's going to be the difference in many of these games. I think back to the one where it was 0-0 and he scored a last minute goal in the group stage against Tunisia. But if you bring that forward to kind of the whole tournament, if you can do that against one of the bigger nations where it's very tight and he is the difference maker, I think just Harry Kane, he's got a great, he's England's all-time record goal scorer. He was the Golden Boot winner in the 2018 World Cup. So yeah, I think he's got 8 goals at World Cups in general. So for me, I'm going to go with the boring one, but I am going to go for Harry Kane.
That's fair. That's fair. He's definitely in contention for me. I think it'd be crazy to not have him in contention. To be honest, it's not a hot take to say Harry Kane might win the World Cup Golden Boot. But yeah, a safe pick, but a fair one. It's similar to my France pick. I feel like
Yeah.
it's maybe a bit boring, but these are predictions of what we think is going to happen in the World Cup. So I respect it. Charlie, what have you got for us?
Yeah, I have gone the same as Lewis. I have gone with Harry Kane. I was quite close in terms, maybe dabbling with either Kylian Mbappe or
Yeah.
even Erling Haaland, because I think there's a good chance that maybe Norway could try and get quite far into this World Cup. And of course, with Haaland being such a good goal scorer, it just seems very likely he could be in contention. But I do agree with Lewis. I'm going to go with Harry Kane. I think yeah, he's mainly said all the stuff to us. He's just such a reliable goal scorer. Obviously, when it does come to the penalty spot, for instance, he's apart from maybe taking two in one match, which is what really kind of got us knocked out against France with scoring one penalty and missing the next one. But yeah, he's again just so reliable in terms of his finishing. Such a great just general striker. His best goal scoring season he's had this season with Bayern Munich, and I think he's going to be able to carry that sort of momentum on and score for England, especially when we've got games like I feel like Ghana and Panama, who we should really easily be comfortably beating, and then probably I wouldn't be surprised if the round of 32 and round of 16 we get teams that on paper we should easily be beating or comfortably be beating, where Kane will add up his tally with goals and get himself a golden boot. So yeah, I'm going with Harry Kane.
Yeah, I mean, on my bracket again that I've already mentioned, if we top the group, we get Congo in the round of 32 according to my brackets.
Yeah,
Again, you'd like to think that's a game that we should be winning relatively comfortably, but it's knockout football. It's World Cup football, so anything can happen. So obviously you both said Harry Kane. The only thing I would say to Harry Kane is that in this England team, will he be dropping off quite a bit, making space? We've seen it before. I feel like in the last World Cup he
I don't
did.
know necessarily. I don't know necessarily under the Tuchel kind of. I've not watched England a lot, but I think it's slightly different tactically under Tuchel. I think the biggest point is I think it was maybe the last World Cup or was it the Euros where he didn't score in the group stage at all. Sometimes he's a bit of a slow burner. He can take time to get going, and obviously, as I've said, with kind of why England should win, they're not always the most kind of free flowing attacking team. They're a little bit more defensive and slower. So will the chances create for him? But I'll still back Harry Kane.
Well, this is it, right? Because you mention a lot of the time, he won't really score that many goals in the group, maybe. A lot of the time, the Golden Boot winner gets a big head start in the group stages. And that's why I've probably gone a little bit rogue, to be honest. I've gone with a Spaniard. I've gone with Mikel Oyarzabal, which is a bit rogue. You know, the 29-year-old plays at Sociedad, but they've got a very kind group Spain. They've got Cape Verde, Saudi Arabia, and Uruguay. Like I can see him racking up three, four, maybe even five goals in the group stages. He's coming off the back of 18 goals in 40 games in the league. If you ask any Aluko, that's nearly a goal a game. Which he's racking them up really. And if you're worried about the game time, right? 'Cause obviously they've got Ferran Torres, they've got Dani Olmo. He is the joint most used player for Spain under Luis de la Fuente, playing 31 out of I think 40 games. In that time as well, he scored 18 and assisted nine. So, like Luis de la Fuente clearly loves him. He plays a lot of games for them, and their group stage is kind. I can just you can see them having a deep run as well. Like maybe he'll get subbed off relatively early, but I think you know Cape Verde they could hit seven quite possibly.
I am surprised for a man that's gone for France that Kylian Mbappe is not in the mix based on the fact that he's 12 goals at a World Cup and could become the all-time World Cup top goal scorer at this tournament if
Well,
France are getting to the final and winning it.
he's definitely in the mix. Like he is
Yeah.
very much in the mix. He was number one on my kind of honorable mentions list because you can't count him out, right? Like you say, I think they're going to win the tournament, which means I think he's going to play a lot of games across the tournament. I think the thing is, like I say, their group isn't as kind. Like Senegal, Norway, yes, I think they've got a rack in the other game, which again you'd think they're going to win quite comfortably. Um, I just think Oyasabel's going to farm some goals in the group stages, and I think Spain are going to go almost just as far as France anyway. Um, so I see Oyarzabal just racking up all the goals early on, and then yeah, it's maybe a rogue shout. Other names I had in there, obviously Mbappe, like I said, Kane I had on my honorable mentions. Maybe a rogue shout for big Romelu Lukaku because their group's nice. He is, I think, their all-time record scorer, but he's barely played this season. I don't fully back it, but I'd love Big Rom to win a Golden Boot on his kind of swan song. Any other names that we've missed out there? Any other names you've got in the mix?
And Valencia. Nah, I suppose Lionel Messi can always be floating around. He's not the same player that he was, obviously, in his peak. He's probably not got as an important role in this Argentina team. However, he's got 13 goals at a World Cup and obviously 116 goals and 198 caps for Argentina. So he's always going to have a chance of getting a goal in a game. So maybe as an outside shout, probably not.
Kelly, you got any other road shouts?
No, no. I think Twist Yarzabal's not really a bad shout. I'm sure he did score quite a bit in the last Euros tournament, if I'm not mistaken, because he was definitely high up there. And I think it's good with Spain that they have. I think what people underestimate with Spain is while they don't have a lot of like standout goal scorers, they have some great players who are good playmakers essentially who are reliable for assists. And I think having Lamine Yamal being there. I mean, I can't really see Yamal being someone in contention of being a top scorer, but maybe if it comes to like player of the tournament because of the assists he's going to tally up for Oyarzabal, then maybe.
Yeah, 100%. 100% could be a shout for the Golden Ball, the best player, right? Um, well, there you go. So our Golden Boot winners are Harry Kane, and Mikel Oyarzabal, which in that company doesn't sound quite as good, but I think I've explained it. I think I've explained it relatively well. Well, it's time for the dark horse now. We're going elsewhere. This is intentionally a bit rogue. Now I have a feeling I know who Charlie's put. Um, just looking at him, looking at the way Charlie's brain works, I think I know what he's gone for. So I'm actually going to go first this time because I
Okay.
want to. I've gone with the South American team. I've gone with Paraguay. I've gone with the Paraguayans. They're in Group D, of course, with the US, with Turkey, with Australia, and yeah, I think Paraguay are going to have a good run this tournament. They are very very solid defensively, as in like they only conceded 10 goals in qualifying, which was the same as Argentina. They also did beat Argentina and Brazil in qualifying as well, so they've got pedigree of beating some top sides. Maybe a little bit less important, but they do have multiple players who already play in the MLS, so they're used to the climate, used to the conditions, used to the pitches, right? Miguel Almiron, Matias Galarza, Brian Oyeda, and Andreas Cubas. A lot of players who are used to playing in that area because you saw in the England friendly, right? Harry Kane, red as a tomato, like not used to playing in that kind of heat. A lot of these Paraguayan players, they're going to be used to it. So that's another thing for me. They've got Enciso, Julio Enciso. They've got Diego Gomez, bit of star Premier League quality in there. And they've got a centre back who plays for someone else as well. There won't be a lot of goals. That is the only thing. They only scored 14 goals in the qualifying. So as much as they only conceded 10, they only scored 14. They've got Antonio Sanabria leading the line, who I think scored like 2 goals in the league this season. So they're not going to be exciting to watch. They're going to keep it tight. They're probably the Bosnia of South America, is how I'd put it. But I see them getting out of the group, and who knows from there? I feel like they're probably going to finish second. I could see that maybe third. If they do finish second, it sets them up against second from Group G, which is probably Egypt or Iran, maybe New Zealand. Like that's quite a kind group at that point. I feel like they'd get through that, and then suddenly they're in the last 16, where probably the hardest team they can face is Argentina, who they've already beaten. They've shown they can frustrate them and they can beat them. So yeah, my dark horse is Paraguay to reach the quarterfinals, which is what they did in World Cup 2010. Any thoughts on that, guys?
It's a rogue one. Normally,
Yeah.
obviously, with the team of maybe if you go in dark horse of Paraguay, maybe a round of 16, maybe a round of 32. Quarterfinals is bold, but I mean, you've said good reasoning. If they're used to playing Argentina and they've got results against them, obviously in the qualifiers, and they have got a relatively easy group, I don't mind it to be fair.
I just think they're going to grind out some results. Like I can just see that. Charlie, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't feel like maybe they would reach the quarterfinals, but I wouldn't be against the idea if they somehow do sneak into the round of 16, as the points that you've made have been very clear and I think very good in terms of supporting the fact how they could make it far. Obviously, maybe depending on where they do finish, but I'm not entirely against it. I think it might be a bold take, but I think it's probably one that you should consider going into this tournament.
Well, let's hear what you've said, Charlie. Let's hear what
Okay.
you've said. Prove me
Right.
right.
Well, I don't know if it's who you think I'm
Biscuit.
I'm about to say, but I've gone with one of the hosts.
Oh,
Gone with
Oh,
one of
okay,
the
I didn't see that.
hosts.
that's not
No.
what I thought.
I have gone with Canada. Um, I think for me, with the group that they've got, they're up against Switzerland, Bosnia, and Qatar. I'd expect them to finish in the top three. I'd expect them to obviously uh, finish above Qatar. I don't see why they can't finish above Bosnia. I think Bosnia are quite an interesting team who could either shock or upset quite a few teams or could just end up losing quite comfortably. And Switzerland are probably going to be the favourites of that group. I think with Canada, similar to Ben, I think they can make the quarterfinals. It may depend on, of course, who they face in the knockouts, depending on who finishes in wherever in certain groups. But I look at the players that they've got. And I'm not against the idea of them going quite far. Like, for instance, we've got the likes of Alphonso Davies, someone who's very experienced, I think scored Canada's first goal in the last World Cup, if I'm not mistaken. Along with the likes of Middlesbrough's defender and former Hull player Alfie Jones. They've also got Richie Larea in there. They've got Ali Ahmed. They've got Ismail Kone, Jonathan David, Liam Miller. Like they've got these players who can possess good quality, who maybe don't shine in certain teams or leagues, but when they're playing with Canada, I think they can make a real difference. There's one player who I'm not gonna lie, it's quite biased. He plays for Hull, Liam Miller, who a lot of fans they see when he plays for Hull. His work rate can be good, but it seems like he puts a lot more on the line when he's playing for his country, and I think that's going to be the same with a lot of the Canadian players, especially going into the tournament which they'll be hosting. And I know from kind of experience with other hosts, like we saw with Russia in their World Cup in 2018, they made it to the quarterfinals, and I think they lost on penalties, if I'm not mistaken. I think it was against Croatia. Can't
Yeah.
remember off the top of my head. I'm pretty sure it was something like that. And I think we do look at US and Mexico probably being more favourable picks. And that's why I've gone with Canada as a dark horse because I think they're probably going to be a team that are more written off and probably don't stand as much of a chance, especially when we're playing more in the US rather than in Mexico or Canada. And yeah, I see Canada getting far, to be honest. And as I said before, it may depend on who they play, but what I've seen previously in their friendlies and in other competitions, they have been occasionally used to playing some top South American teams in the friendlies. They've contested quite well with certain nations in Europe, which leads me to think that they're not going to do so bad in this tournament. So yeah,
Okay.
Canada is my pick.
To the quarterfinals is it for Canada as well?
To the quarterfinals, yeah.
Interesting. Interesting. Okay, so We've got Paraguay making the quarters. We've got Canada making the quarters, which I do think Canada have a slightly tougher route through to that point. Like they could face Mexico, they could face the US, which would be vibes.
Yeah.
But yeah, I hadn't considered that. I thought you were going to say Norway. To be honest, I thought I was dead set you were going Norway.
I was considering Norway in all fairness, just again based on like the few decent quality players that they do have that are going to take them far, like Odegaard and Haaland. But
I like that you've gone rogue.
yeah, I've gone more rogue.
I like
I've picked the more rogue option.
Lewis, where I have no idea where you've gone. Whereabouts have you gone? Have you gone in the Americas as well, or
No, so I feel like you two have got very good, probably a prediction in the sense of going for a team that plays in hotter climates and is more acclimatized to kind of the conditions, obviously being the host and being a South American team. Now, I've gone for a team who at the Euros in 2016 were possibly a dark horse themselves, but really underwhelmed. And then they've kind of maybe brought it back at the last Euros, which is Austria. I think that I am concerned with what you've both just said, with the fact that they play the Gegenpress, they play this high octane attacking football under Ralph Ragnick. And will that be something where they might be exposed later on in games? They might tire out. Obviously, we have got water breaks, but I am concerned that maybe this kind of attacking, fast paced play that they have could actually be their weakness. However, I just think they cruised through their qualifying quite easily. They topped their group quite comfortably, only lost to Romania, which was at the very end when they started to rotate more. They've got Ralph Ragnick, who for me, yes, he's in his first maiden managerial stint as on the international stage. However, we've seen throughout his career, he's known for kind of galvanizing teams. He's done a lot of work in the Red Bull system at kind of basically rejuvenating and transitioning kind of teams into his style of play and playing a very good tactic. And I'm just excited to watch them, really. They've got a mixture of youth and experience. We talk about, obviously, David Alaba going to his first World Cup. He has had injury problems. He's now left Real Madrid. However, I think he'll be a good leader no matter what his kind of minutes are in the tournament. I then look at kind of Marko Arnautovic up front at 37 years old, who is the record scorer for Austria. He's also a clinical striker on his day. Yes, with that system, he probably won't be playing the full 90 minutes of every game. And then kind of their star player, Christopher Baumgartner, who was great at the last Euros until they obviously lost to Turkey, I think, in the round of 16. I think that he's a really dangerous player, really is taken under Ralph Ragnick. What I've heard is that Ralph Ragnick's very liked. He's very someone that the team gets behind very well. And then you talk about Conrad Leimer, Danso, Seawald. They've obviously also brought in Carney, who switched allegiance, the obviously ex-Chelsea player. I think that they've got enough talent and creativity where they can probably do very well. Now, I've looked at it, and if they finish first, which is obviously Argentina, South American team, reigning World Cup champions, but if they finish first, they'd have more of a favourable kind of round of 32 in either Uruguay or Saudi Arabia most likely. So I think that that is where they could possibly push on to the round of 16, maybe dependent on who they get in the round of 16, again, reach the quarterfinals. I'm going to say round of 16 is the furthest that they go, being a little bit more realistic. If they finish second, they'd probably face Spain, which means they'd probably only get to maybe the round of 32 because I'd expect Spain to beat them. But yeah, I do think with Argentina, Algeria, and Tunisia, Algeria are no pushovers, but they can definitely do well in that group and get far. So yeah, for me, first World Cup since 1998, and I'm going to go that Austria do quite well in it.
interesting? Okay, so that's our dark horses done. We've got Paraguay to the quarters. We've got Canada to the quarters. And we've got Austria for the round 16. Arguably, I'd say Austria, they're probably the strongest team on paper, and you've got them going, less than our two. But I respect that you've tried to be a bit more realistic there. I think stick your neck on the line, mate. Go bold. But we move. And we move on to the Breakout Star, actually, is where we go next. Charlie, I'm going to go to you first. Who do you think is going to really kind of stake a claim, be that next person on this tournament?
I have gone with Yan Diomande from Ivory Coast. He's a player that has stood out, of course, with Leipzig, really played his part there, and a lot of big clubs are looking in terms of a transfer for this summer. And based on what he's done this season or last season, however you view it. He's done tremendous. I think for Ivory Coast, he was quite quiet in the African Cup of Nations in the last one, but I feel like the World Cup is really where he's going to shine. And if it does get to the point where he's going to be scoring plenty of goals, making plenty of goal involvements, that's when he's going to really stand out to go to bigger clubs in the summer in terms of a transfer to maybe, who knows, Premier League, La Liga, or even. But yeah, Yan Diomande, I think Ivory Coast could do very well if Diomande performs well.
Yeah, I mean, there's already Liverpool sniffing around him. He is someone I had on my list, definitely. Like, he was kind of my first honorable mention again because I think he's already a relatively big name, but I think I agree. Like,
Yeah.
this could be the tournament where he just goes kind of stratospheric and yeah, makes that big move. So I like Yandy Mendo. I also think Ivory Coast will have a decent tournament, so I don't mind it. I'm gonna go next. I've gone with a Bosnian. He's 18. He plays for RB Salzburg, and it's Karim Alibegovic. Um, he's very young, but he's got 13 goals and 4 assists in all comps last season. He's very two-footed, right? He scored 9 goals in the league, 4 of them with his left and 5 of them with his right. So a very two-footed player. They do have a relatively easy group. Like they've got Qatar, the Swiss, which should be pretty good, and then Charlie's quarterfinals, Jesse Marsh's Canada, um, which I'd say not a bad group for Bosnia there. Like they'll probably have some tight games. They probably won't score a lot of goals, but there's a track record of them bringing him onto the pitch off the bench and kind of changing the game. Like he played really well against Italy in the playoffs, and he assisted the equaliser against Wales. So I've gone Kerim Alibegovic to be a bit of a breakout star this tournament because I don't think a lot of people know of him, and I think after this tournament they will. Is what I'm saying. Lewis, what do you got for us?
I've gone similar to, if you remember, the 2022 World Cup, where it was kind of the big breakout for Josko Gvardiol. Even though he was known at Leipzig, he sealed that move to Man City. And I've now gone for maybe the next gen of that, which is Luka Vuskovic. So the Spurs youngster. He's had 2 seasons out on loan at Westerlo in Belgium and this season, Hamburg. He's actually a very good goal scorer for a defender. He's got 6 goals this season, 7 goals last season. And he's got a lot of teams sniffing around him who, if he has a good tournament, probably would come in for him. Apparently, De Zerbi wants to keep him, but Spurs are considering selling him for a big fee. The likes of Liverpool, Real Madrid, Barcelona are all after him, Chelsea as well. He averages the highest defensive contributions this season in the Bundesliga. I think he's going to be a mainstay and an important player for Croatia. So yeah, I've gone for Lucas Vuskovic. Maybe he can obviously push on and become a big player for Tottenham. If not, be sold and maybe bring up his stock this summer. So yeah, he's got 5 caps his first major tournament. We'll see.
I rate it. I rate it. I did have a centre back in the mix as well in Bosnia's Tarik Muharemovic. So a lot of Bosnians involved for me. See how I feel about their chances. Edin Dzeko, unk of the tournament. But okay, so we've got Yan Diomande, we've got Kerim Alibegovic, and we've got Luka Vuskovic. I'd say I've probably got the roguest name there, but that might also mean he does the worst out of the three. Okay, well we're coming to an end, but before we close out, we've got the rogue prediction. So it's just something that you can just see happening. A little bit weird, but you just see it. Um, Charlie, fire away, mate. What have you got?
I am gonna go for a giant killer. I think one of the big nations and former World Cup winners are gonna lose to one of the debutants of this World Cup. And I wanted to really pick one just to be precise and more detailed. And after struggling for quite a bit which one to pick, I've decided that I think because Saudi Arabia beat Argentina in the last World Cup, I'm going to say Jordan are going to beat Argentina, which is one hell of a hot take. But if I told you 4 years ago that Saudi Arabia would beat Argentina, you probably would look at me thinking, yeah, get out. They're going to win the World Cup. They're not going to lose to any team that are like Saudi Arabia who don't really stand much of a chance. Jordan are going to beat Argentina. That is my rogue prediction.
It's certainly rogue. I
Yeah.
did not. I didn't see that coming. Fair enough. Jordan to beat Argentina in Charlie's rogue prediction. Lewis, what about you, mate? Have you gone similarly weird?
No, mine's just a simple Marcelo Bielsa has a typical Marcelo Bielsa kind of tournament. And I think that Uruguay implode under him during this World Cup. I think we've already seen big stars, Luis Suarez, Edison Cavani, fall out with him. He's not really got the support of this team, and I think that given that he already says he's going to leave after this tournament, his heart's not really in it. I think that they're going to have a poor tournament, and I think something big's going to happen. Maybe he'll throw his water bucket and smash a player on the head. Something massive's coming. Marcelo Bielsa, he's going to blow his top off, and he's going to go mental.
Marcelo will be able to have a fight with the players.
Yeah, probably.
Again, definitely rogue. I like it. I like it. These are great. Okay, I've actually gone positive here. You two are both fucking, upsetting. I've actually gone with something nice. I've gone with Spain to set a new record for goals scored at the tournament. Because as I mentioned, they've got a nice group. I think they're going to absolutely tonk Cape Verde. And then I think they're getting through to the final, maybe the semis. And the current record is 27, held by Hungary in 1954. I think that record's in danger. So I'm going with Spain to set a new record. I worked
Don't
out
mind it.
does mean they need to score like 3 point something goals a game. But if they do hit like seven against Cape Verde, then they're in chance. If Uruguay implode, they could hit a few there. They've got Saudi Arabia. Like they could be on 15 by the end of the groups. It's on
I
them.
wouldn't be surprised if it's like a 4-0 Spain against Uruguay as the first
Yeah.
shock, and then it
Like
all goes wrong for Uruguay.
it's on at that point. If they're on like 15 goals by the end of the groups, it is on. So that's what I'm going with. I'm going with Spain to set a new goals record in the World Cup. But what do you think is going to happen at the World Cup, viewers? What do you think is going to happen? Let us know in the comments. Let us know what you think of our predictions. They will be out on social media, so you can have a look at the full combined list, and then whenever things that we said are going to happen don't happen, we can be harangued by the general public.
Charlie
Uh,
can't say Kiefer Moore to be the Golden Boot winner this time.
that's true.
I know, what
Yeah,
a shame.
the real kind. It's a reference to the Road to Qatar podcast of several years ago, there, viewers. Well, thank you very much for listening. Thank you for joining us. Thanks for joining me as well, lads. It's been a pleasure. Next time we speak, the World Cup will have started. So we'll see you on the flip side. All the best. Ta